Right now, tonight, you're going to do something genuinely reckless. You're going to lie down, close your eyes, and become completely unconscious for 6 to 9 hours straight. No awareness, no ability to react. Total, blissful helplessness. And you're not even going to think twice about it, because your blanket's got you, your heater's got you, your walls have got you. The whole problem is basically solved before you even get in bed. Now rewind 20,000 years. Same species, same brain, same need to fall completely unconscious every single night. Except now, you're doing it on the open Eurasian steppe, in the dead of an ice age winter, where the temperature outside is 40 degrees below zero. No walls, no radiator quietly humming in the corner, no blanket like the one on your bed right now. Just you, about to go fully unconscious, in cold that could kill an unprepared adult in under an hour. So here's the question that should be bothering you. How did an entire species survive doing this, night after night, for hundreds of thousands of years, in conditions that should have wiped out most of a population within a few winters? And I want to be upfront with you. The answer is not they got lucky. It's not humans used to be hairier. The real answer is honestly one of the most impressive engineering stories in human history. And by the end of this, you're going to look at your thermostat completely differently.
Let's talk about why this problem was so much scarier than most people realize. Hypothermia doesn't need you to be awake to kill you. If anything, sleep makes it worse. The second you fall asleep, your body temperature naturally drops, your metabolism slows down, and you stop generating heat through movement because, well, you're not moving. On top of that, your brain's ability to notice the early warning signs of dangerous cold, shivering, numbness, confusion, gets massively dulled while you're unconscious. This is exactly why, even today, hypothermia deaths disproportionately happen at night. Sleep is the single most vulnerable state a human body can be in when it comes to cold. And Ice Age humans had to do it every single night with none of our modern tools. So let's kill the myth right away, because you almost certainly have this image in your head. Miserable cave people, huddled, shivering around a tiny dying fire, basically gambling with their lives every winter and hoping morning comes before the cold does. That picture is almost entirely wrong. What the archaeology actually shows looks less like desperate survival and a lot more like an engineered heating and insulation system, refined with an obsessive level of precision, because getting it wrong meant somebody didn't wake up. First surprise, Ice Age humans mostly weren't living in caves at all. At a site called Kostenki in Russia, archaeologists uncovered the remains of actual structures built almost entirely.
And here's the part that should genuinely stop you. Experimental archaeologists have actually rebuilt these structures using only the tools and materials available at the time, then measured the interior temperature during real winter conditions. A properly built mammoth bone house, heated with just a modest fire, maintained interior temperatures 40 to 50 degrees warmer than the outside air. Some modern Arctic shelters, built with industrial insulation and electric heating, performed no better than that. Read that again. Stone Age builders working with bone, hide, and stone tools matched the thermal performance of modern engineered buildings. But keeping a room warm during the day is one challenge. Keeping it warm through 8 hours of total unconsciousness during the coldest part of the night is a completely different problem. And this is where it actually gets fascinating. An unattended fire burns out within a few hours. Build it too big instead, and in an enclosed shelter, you're looking at a serious suffocation risk. So what did they do? Archaeological evidence from sites across Ukraine and the Czech Republic shows multiple smaller hearths positioned strategically around a shelter's interior, rather than one central blaze. Each one sized to maintain warmth in a specific sleeping zone without needing constant tending through the night. This wasn't one fire radiating outward and getting weaker with distance. This was something a lot closer to modern zone heating. Even the fuel had to be engineered. On the treeless steppe, wood wasn't always available in the quantities needed to keep multiple fires going through a long winter night.
So they adapted. Dried animal dung, specifically shaped and prepared. Processed bone, which burns slower and hotter than you'd expect. Chemical analysis of hearth residue shows these fuels weren't just tossed on haphazardly. They were treated in specific ways to control burn rate, essentially engineered to smolder consistently through the unconscious hours rather than burning out in the first two.
Now here's a problem that almost never comes up, and it might honestly be the most dangerous part of the whole equation. Moisture. Every breath you exhale while sleeping releases water vapor. Every fire burning in an enclosed shelter releases even more. In a sealed structure in freezing temperatures, that moisture doesn't just disappear. It condenses on the walls and freezes solid. And over a winter, that ice buildup can actually compromise the structure while making the inside steadily colder and damper. Archaeological evidence shows a deliberate solution. Small openings near ground level let cool, fresh air in low, well below where people were sleeping. Larger openings near the top of the dome let warm, moisture-heavy air escape before it could freeze. That's the exact same principle modern buildings use for humidity control, just executed with bone and an intuitive understanding of airflow, refined across generations by people who learned the hard way what happens when you get it wrong. Let's talk about where people actually slept, because this detail is almost absurdly thoughtful. You don't just lie down on frozen ground and hope for the best. Excavations at multiple sites have uncovered deliberately built sleeping platforms, layered with grasses, leaves, and other insulating plant material, keeping bodies elevated off the coldest surface in the shelter, the ground itself, which acts as a constant heat sink, pulling warmth directly out of anyone lying on it. And here's the detail that gets me every time. Beneath some of these platforms, researchers have found ash, deliberately spread, not accidental leftover from a nearby fire. Why? Ash repels insects. Fleas, ticks, mites, all the things that would otherwise infest bedding and spread disease during months when everyone was packed indoors together. Someone, tens of thousands of years ago, got itchy, looked at the ash from the fire, made a connection, tested it, confirmed it worked, and passed it on. That's not superstition. That's the scientific method, running quietly in a prehistoric brain, solving the specific. And then there's the part that turns all of this from individual survival into a system. Group sleeping. None of this worked for one isolated person. Ice Age humans slept pressed closely together. And this wasn't just comfort, it was thermal physics. More bodies packed into an enclosed space measurably raises the ambient temperature. A group sleeping together inside a well-built mammoth bone house with multiple hearths maintained through the night wasn't gambling on survival. They were running a genuinely sophisticated, multi-layered heating system, and it worked reliably enough to sustain entire populations through repeated Ice Age winters. Now, I want to be fair here, because it would be dishonest to pretend this system was flawless. People did freeze. Infant mortality in extreme cold environments was significantly higher than in temperate ones, and a poorly built or poorly maintained shelter, one caught in an unusually brutal cold snap, absolutely could and did result in death. This wasn't a perfect system. It was an extraordinarily well-optimized one, refined constantly by the simple, brutal fact that mistakes were fatal, which meant the knowledge that worked got passed down, and the approaches that failed simply weren't repeated. Building one of these mammoth bone houses wasn't quick either. It took an estimated 2 to 3 weeks of intensive labor from 8 to 10 adults, which means construction had to start in late summer or early.
None of it was written down. None of it was taught in a classroom. It was carried entirely in lived experience, passed from person to person, generation after generation, refined constantly because getting it wrong cost everything. When the Ice Age ended and the climate warmed, this entire body of knowledge gradually stopped being necessary and was mostly forgotten, not because it failed, but because it simply wasn't needed anymore. And it's a strange thing to sit with, that modern Arctic engineers, working with computer modeling and industrial materials, have in some cases rediscovered principles that Ice Age builders had already worked out using nothing but bone, hide, ash, and dung tens of thousands of years earlier. So tonight, when you climb into bed under a blanket in a heated room and fall completely unconscious without giving it a single thought, understand what that actually represents. It's not the default state of being human. It's the end result of hundreds of thousands of years of engineering so precise that an entire species learned to survive its most vulnerable hours, night after night, in conditions that should have ended everything. You didn't invent a warm night's sleep. You inherited it from people who built it out of bone, fire, and an absolute refusal to freeze.